All right, Ty, so what are we looking at?
Today we're going to look at the exterior wall framing a little bit and just talk about some things you want to think about when you're laying out exterior walls. Obviously, if we look at this wall here, we've got an exterior structural wall. Trusses are buried on top of this, right? That's how we know it's a structural wall. We've got two double top plates. We've got two bottom plates in this case because we've got a radiant floor here and we're going to have a concrete topping. So we had to add the second plate for backing, right? So our drywall has backing. So a couple things to consider when we're doing layout for exterior walls is where do we start? We've got some architectural drawings where we've got the overall size of that showing. We've got potentially centers of windows, right? In this case, sometimes drawings aren't perfect. We basically start with what we know, and we know the size of this bathroom, right? So this bathroom wall here divides the bedroom to the bathroom we have on our drawings. From that point, once we've laid that out, we now want to make this window centered in this space. So when we look at that, the distance from this side to this side should be parallel, right? That's how it was meant to be. We've also got some headroom heights here for windows, so it would give us a depicted height. There's a couple different things we want to factor in. We want to make sure that we don't set these heights up too high where our roof line actually comes down below our window, right? So lots of things to consider when we're doing this. When it's the basics, there's starting points, and that's like we had talked about. We would lay out our intersecting walls, so where this wall comes to, we would lay that out on our plates. We would lay out the center of this window. We would lay out the center of this window, right? And then basically after that, now we have the ability to work our layout out for all of our studs, right?
Our studs typically, are we going 16s or what?
And typically in this zone, we're going 16-inch on center. If we're trying to reduce waste, we can potentially talk to our engineer and go to what we call the diamond method, which is basically a 19.25 on center, right? But most typical is 16-inch on center. So really, when we're thinking about how we're positioning our stud layout, we have to think about what it's doing. So it's holding drywall on the inside of the wall, right? So that's something that we'd like to consider, but it's also holding all of our structural sheeting, right? So when we typically build exterior walls, we're working with our layout for our sheeting and not so much focused on the drywallers on the inside. Sorry, drywallers, but that's just the way we roll. When we're doing interior walls, that's somewhere where we would consider more so based on drywall, right? When it comes to areas of concern like bathrooms, we want to ensure we mark out all of our vanities, our toilets, our showers, and we want to ensure that our stud layout doesn't have studs dead center of perhaps where we've got a shower here and we've got a shower head that we know is going to be dead center of that shower. We want to ensure that we're not putting a stud right in that zone, right? So things to consider. That's why we always, when we're getting into the stage, we try and lay everything out on the floor as we're going, or on our plates, on our bottom plates, so that we're not going back after the fact and having to cut studs out, move studs over, right? We like to try and think about all these things as it's happening, right? More pre-planning you can do, you're setting yourself up for success, and you're going to be more efficient because you're not fixing things in the back framing stage, right? So that's a little bit about what we're doing when it comes to framing exterior walls. Again, we can break down components like windows as well. We've got a jack stud here. This is our bottom sill plate.
Why do you call it a jack stud?
That's just the terminology, right?
Jack stud?
So, yeah, jack stud. You can call it whatever you really like, right? We've got multiple points of window and door framing, right? We've got what we call a king stud, which holds and ties in our structural beams, our header, right? So this is a structural header above a window, and what that's serving is it basically spans this distance. So the weight from the roof load, right, if we didn't have this beam in here, could sag this. If you've got a window that's sitting underneath here, that could potentially shatter the glass, right? So that's why wherever we know we've got a structural wall here where we've got bearing above, we've got to put a header in, right? What picks that header up is what we call a cripple. So we've got a king stud, and then in this case, we've got 2 cripples. And rule of thumb with most engineers is the width of this. So this is a 3.5, 9.5 parallam, right? So they want to cover the majority of that width, right? So in this case, the engineer said with this span, for a 3.5 inch beam, he wants 3 inches of bearing. If we had a 5 inch beam or maybe an 8 inch beam, we would have to try and max that out. So if we had 5 inches of a width, right, we'd want to make that a 4 ply so we get approximately the 5 inches of bearing that he wants. Right?
So why do they call it do you say a double cripple?
The double cripple. Yeah.
Why? Just 2?
What's that?
2 studs?
2 studs.
Sandwiched together?
Yeah. And that's all nailed together, approximately 2 nails every 16 inch on center, right? This is locked all in, and then depending on what you're doing on the outside, this wall, I believe there's sections that are shear, but the whole wall is not a shear wall, right? So when we're talking about structural things like that, you're gonna have a set of engineered drawings that will have specifications for all of that. So you wanna make sure that when you're building and framing, you're following those and you're reading all of the details quite carefully for shear walls, nailing patterns, point loads, another big one, right? Because if I was supposed to put 3 or 4 cripples in here and I've cut this too short, I basically now have to come in here after the fact and totally renovate this opening, right? That could take half a day, right? Not ideal, a bunch of wasted material, right?
Time is money.
Time is money, and understanding that you need to follow the guidelines. That's what the drawings are there for, right? Obviously things aren't perfect, so you're gonna have to be able to troubleshoot things with your architect and your engineer, your professionals, and that's what you're there for, right? Bring the problems up, solve the problems, bring those solutions to the professionals, right? And that's a bit about framing. We're gonna go more deep dived into how to build a wall, structural wall. So if you want to subscribe, you can potentially check that video coming up soon.